Okay, I am so flippin' excited to introduce all of you to the amazing Lisa Vanloo of For Your Record. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so pumped for our conversation today.
Same.
This is going to be, oh, sorry, what?
No, I was going to say thanks for having us and like making this time for us to talk about what we're doing. It's like super exciting.
Yes, this is, sorry, a truck just drove by. But I'm so grateful. So I happened upon y'all on LinkedIn and I was like, oh my gosh, these people are awesome. And then, life happens, kind of, didn't get on LinkedIn much. And then Instagram was like, hey, you like these people on LinkedIn, you should check them out. And once I really dug into everything that y'all do, it's like, y'all are after my own heart. Like we're in this, we're doing it. So I'm so pumped. So first off, before I start blabbing, tell me a bit about you and For Your Record.
Okay, so these may overlap, right? Because so I am a single mom, 3 kids. I'm a former journalist, and I still do. I still write quite a bit for publications, and I'm in marketing, and writing is my jam. It's my work, but it's also my state of flow. It's how I kind of, achieve a certain mental energy. And so that's a gift. So that's just kind of me. Live in Arizona. So it's hot. We're already dying down here. And have had, I'm a domestic abuse survivor. I suppose that's important. And have come to know quite a few different court systems because of that over my journey. And I like to say the offender is or was prolific, so which isn't a compliment, but it gave me this tremendous learning curve of trying to figure out navigating the different courts. So like I'm talking about like municipal, superior, county, even a different county, just trying to understand their procedures, getting records, victim statements, all that type of stuff. And so For Your Record was born out of a sense of frustration, which I'm sure a lot of survivors can appreciate, in a lot of capacities, right? So not just domestic abuse, but just survivors in general of traumatic experiences can appreciate there's a lot of frustration when it comes to the legal system. And I got to a point where I was so frustrated, but I knew I couldn't change the outcome of my circumstance. It was decided. And I couldn't, so like toiling over it mentally was only torturing myself further. And I just remember thinking like, what can I do to channel this energy? Because there's a lot of it. How do I flip it? How do I make it useful for someone else? And I came to the conclusion that, man, I have really had to dig through public records to make sure that I have the knowledge that I need for custody cases and different things so that I am aware of what's happening. And I know how to do it as a journalist and as a survivor. And so For Your Record was just kind of born. And our mission is to help people discover public records that are useful to them, provide financial assistance for retrieving those public records. And then in addition to that, providing financial grants to survivors to cover the cost of court filing fees. And when I say that, it's not legal retainers, it's the fees that come with, okay, I need an emergency custody order, which I've had to do. And through no fault of my own, had to shell out like $400 right there on the spot just for the judge to look at it. So these are fees that survivors are incurring through no fault of their own. And some people can pay for them and some people can't. And so that's what our mission is, to kind of just offset some of that financial burden so people can move forward with what they need to do for safety. Does that help?
I love that. And I just think of so many, I mean, it breaks my heart how many survivors that I know, but so many people just like pop in my head. And it's like, especially, and I don't want to take away from what anyone's gone through, but like, especially for those who have incurred a lot of financial abuse and there's a lot of financial dependence, they stay because they don't know how to leave. They don't know how to pay for these things. They don't know how to like take that first step. And you guys, I mean, yes, the financial piece is huge, but it's so empowering to just know that like, oh, there's someone there. There's someone there that's like, that knows what I'm going through and that can not only help me with a piece of the financial bit, but to help the public records part. Cause like this is all of this. And I told you this in our pre-pod like chat. I don't know what I don't know. And like, this is the part where, and now I'm like kicking myself for not learning this sooner because now I have to start doing things all over again. But like, take a step back because I've got so many thoughts coming in my head. What would you tell someone who, how do I word this? Okay, you know what? We're going to go here. What are like the top 3 things that you would tell someone who doesn't know what they don't know regarding this space? And then I'll let you take it from there.
Okay, so regarding specifically public records, people may not even know. Some people don't even know what public records are, like they don't even know that they are allowed that they have a right to access records. I mean, we have a Freedom of Information Act in this country that makes records public. It's why mugshots run online. It's why, it's why newspapers can get information because these reporters will put in requests to get internal emails, or it's how like scandals are uncovered basically. So and they don't have a special right. We all have that right. So I'll tell you, like, personally, my experience when the public record thing just went, and I'm a journalist, I don't know why I didn't think of it sooner, right? But I'm several years into my marriage. I mean, close to 15 was when we were going through our divorce, and I'm sitting outside and my neighbor walks over and says, you know that your ex had a restraining order taken out against him from his first wife, right? And I was like, no, I'm telling you, it was like the first time that my knees just buckled in my life. And I was like, no. And she's like, yeah, I just pulled it up online. I was like, how have I, this is like my profession. I think you get like this, in life. And so, wow, was that powerful? I mean, that was, talk about affirming after you've been, gaslighted for years about it's you, to then get a copy, to alone know that it existed, and then to request it and get a copy of it and read what was in there, took my breath away. So there's a lot that people try to bury or just don't talk about, what is it called? Is it like lying by omission? Is that a cliche or a phrase? Yeah. So there's a lot out there, and you might not find anything, and good for you. And I think that would be like the ideal situation, is like, okay, so this person is what they say they are for right now, whatever, that's fine. And it didn't work out for us, but it could be incredibly helpful and enlightening to understand the path that came before you for your recovery and your healing, for your future custody situations. And then, even again, in my situation, there were criminal activities that happened in front of my kids on his custody time that were buried, arrests, assaults that were buried and not talked about. And I didn't find out about until I requested them. So because I'm not listed as a victim, that's the other point. You asked for a couple points. If you're not listed as a victim in a crime, you're not going to automatically get them. So you have to go and be your little detective. So even children, this is part of the For-Your Record long game, is, my kids were involved in a DUI with, in the car with their dad, and they weren't listed as a victim, that's like a whole different like statutory thing. I mean, it's weird. The state is the victim. It's very strange, but I was not allowed. I was not given those records as their victim representative, I had to sleuth and find them. And I still do to this day. Anything going on in that court case, I have to go and request it. And it's okay. It takes a couple seconds. It's online. It's pretty easy. But when you start talking about body cam footage from an arrest, which is all, kind of in the zeitgeist right now with all of the police brutality. But when you're talking about body cam footage or photos or audio of an arrest, they charge you for that. And they could be like $30 to $40. And if you get somebody who is offending multiple times, that adds up and it's all out of your pocket and it's not reimbursable. So that's kind of where we're going to step in and fill these little gaps, these cracks in the system that are small but mighty, right, to those people, because that information can be so, like you said, empowering for not only recovery, but for future court cases. So I hope that helps.
There's so much there. And maybe like this is a whole nother thing, but like how on earth, and we talked about this in the pre-pod chat too, so I'm going to try really hard to not like get on this because I'm just infuriated as a parent myself. How on earth is the state the victim when there's children in the car? Children, minors.
I don't get it. I really don't. It's so frustrating. But I think that just really speaks to going back to the disappointment in the legal system and the way things are framed and the way that victims really have to fight for themselves, or survivors really have to fight for themselves. And offenders are, given the innocent until proven guilty, having all these rights type of thing. But the survivors are just kind of like out here in no man's land, like having to figure this out for themselves on top of the emotional recovery that they have to do. And then on top of the daily logistical everything of like, well, today still has to happen. I still got to get my kids ready for school, still got to go to work. And I still have to handle all this on top of like unpacking all of this and navigating a very new system in the legal system. Like I didn't want to have to know how to do a victim statement. I didn't want to have to know, what it felt like inside one of those rooms in the county detention center where they protect the victims so they can give a statement. But here you are, and it's so important for you to show up for those things because, and I understand why people don't, because it can be scary, and I didn't for a long time. But it's so important to show up and do everything by the book because you are helping the next person. We had a statistic that we shared the other day that it was like 30% of abusers offend again within the first year. So they're not done when they're done with you. Like this is how they know how to live, and this is how they're going to continue living until there's something stops them. So I don't know. That's the way I look at it. It's like we're trying to put some obstacles up for the next person if they're willing to look and if they're willing to listen.
I mean, well, one, I think this just goes to show like different personality types too, because you were just talking about this so calm, and I'm just like ready to go. I'm not actually going to go and murder anybody, but the rage in me is real right now. And like, I'm just looking back that, and this is not what this is about, but I am going to make sure that this is stated. I am so sick and tired of hearing all of these things about, well, why didn't they come forward? Why didn't they say anything? If it was really that bad, they would have said something. This is why, like, the abuser is sitting there, and I understand the innocent proven guilty thing. I really do. But the abuser gets to go through that while the victim is, well, did you piss him off? What did you do? What were you wearing? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you speak up? What? Oh, the rage in me right now is so real, because I'm just like, I didn't even know that. And this is embarrassing, especially considering what I do. But this is also why I bring wonderful people like you on to teach me too. Selfishly, this is 100% a masterclass for me. I didn't know even like that a victim statement was something that was separate, like that was something that you had to do. Because I'm looking back on things that happened to me in my life from the time like I was 5 and 6 years old. And then when I was 13 and then 17, I never went to court because I was so terrified. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I didn't feel believed. I didn't feel respected. And I did not want to have one more person tell me that it was my fault. And so I didn't do anything. And so that person is out. Lord knows. Like, then there's, like the survivor's guilt that comes along with that. Cause like, shoot, I didn't say something. But sorry, I'm not supposed to be doing this much talking, but this is so important. So important. So important.
It's a terrifying, when someone's had a grip on you emotionally and mentally for whatever period of time, right? It is, your first thought is what's going to happen if? What's going to happen if I say something? What's going to happen if, I do this? And so it's hard to break out of that mental loop. And the more often you step out of that loop, mind you, I'm not a therapist, I'm just talking about like from my personal experience, the more often you step out of that loop, the more confident you feel the next time you do it. Mm-hmm. I was terrified. I mean, I didn't even want to be in the same zip code as that guy. And unfortunately I was. What it took for me was our sliding glass door, like our main Arcadia door. I'm looking at it, our family room being completely shattered. So that was like, well, I'm going to court now because I'm done feeling terrorized and intimidated, and I'll go and someone's going to be with me. And that kind of that also kind of dovetails into the way our board is constructed for your record. We're trying to cover a lot of bases. So yes, we're offering financial grants for those court fees because that is an urgent matter. Once someone decides like, this is the day I'm going, that's the day they're going. And so there's a reason, right? So they need to go and get that paperwork in that day. So that's one of them. Public records takes a little more time, can be confusing. We're working with you on that. Our board includes 7 survivors, all very different circumstances. So there's someone on our board who can speak to or connect with the survivors who are coming to us on a number of levels, which I think is so important. That peer-to-peer confirmation, affirmation, empathy is invaluable. And then we have a victim's advocate on our board who is sent from, heaven. She's so smart. She's so empathetic. She is tough as nails. She knows the system, and she can build you up to get you ready to be like, let's do this, because she knows how important it is. She's seen it. She's worked in the system, and she knows how important it is to move that forward. And we have, finance professionals on our board. We have family law on our board, so they can advise us. I'm like, oh, you shouldn't say that, or this would be really important for them, or, and we're forming a cultural advisory council too, so we can make sure that we are in tune with like social and cultural issues to make sure that for the, that we're helping with diversity and LGBTQ community, though their unique nuances there with gay couples and abuse within there, and just that added shame with their families, and like they feel even more isolated, that maybe they're not even out to their families. How do they talk about being abused by their partner? So we really are trying to not spread ourselves too thin, but be able to offer the resources that people need, because I keep saying, like, this is such a gray issue. It isn't black and white. Mm-hmm. And every circumstance is different. So we hope that, okay, if you don't qualify for financial assistance, maybe we can help you with a victim statement. Lord knows I've written enough, or maybe we can help you with finding financial resources so you can figure out, like, what do I do with my life insurance now that we're getting divorced? I don't want to miss my beneficiary. How do I figure that all out? Like, we have someone who can talk people through that. So that's kind of why we're trying to be broad.
That is so cool. And so it hurts my heart to say what I'm going to say, but I'm also so grateful for it that none of that is, I have not heard any of that spoken about in any of the circles that I'm in. Nobody has said, oh, hey, we want someone who has, the cultural understanding when it comes to, people of color and people of other cultures, and then the LGBTQ, and then, the victims advocate, like, none of that. No, it's making me emotional. There's just so much coming up, but like, that's not talked about enough at all. And you're sitting here like going, okay, no, we're not spreading ourselves thin, but I know that I can't do it all and I don't know everything. And I'm willing to say I don't know everything. And then you've got all survivors. And it's like, and I don't want to take away from any allies to survivors either. But there is something so powerful when someone who has gone through it looks at you in the face and goes, I get it. You're valid. I see you. I believe you. No questions asked. Let's get you the hell out of there. And that is, oh man, it's like making me emotional.
I think too, like, you just gave me the goosebumps, just so you know. I think that there is some value to in us being able to understand, hey, you need a safe phone number to contact us or to give us, or you need a safe email that we can contact you on, because if you haven't left yet, like that's one of the questions on our application. Have you left yet? Have you tried to leave before? Do they know you're trying to leave? Because we're really trying to measure the temperature of the situation, because we know that if they know they're trying to leave, that there's they may be like a hawkeye on everything that they're doing. So I think that what I was trying to get at is the value. I mean, as someone, when I was in the relationship, distinctly remember I was supposed to go out one night to a concert with 3 coworkers. It was like an old school hip hop thing. Like, I don't even know who was there, but I was like so excited because it was like, I think Vanilla Ice was there and he ended up being really bad. But anyway, I was excited to go, and I didn't go out ever. And of course, it was a big thing because I didn't like cook dinner, or I didn't get a prescription, or something stupid that needed to be inserted in that moment. And how dare I go out? And he was screaming at me down the driveway as I was backing out, and threw soda at my car as I was backing out. And ultimately, not by then you're bawling. So you're not going out, you feel like crap. And, I'm going to have to pay for it when I get home. So what's the point? So I decide not to go, pick him up dinner, bring it home, come home, have to call my coworkers and say, hi guys, I can't go. One of the kids is throwing up, so I need to stay home. And they knew, because I was crying. So like they knew what was going on. But that is to say, like, we've had those conversations. We've had to be like, hey, I can't do what I promised I was going to do. Can I do it another time? And so when a survivor comes to us and say, today, I know we were supposed to talk today about my victim statement. It's not going to work today for me. Can we do it another day? Or even if they can't even give us a heads up, like, we get it, like the environment is turbulent, and we've been there, and we've rode the waves, and we've felt the earthquakes, and we've waited till it settled just to make sure that it was the right time to do something. And I can kind of smile about it now because I'm out of it, but it's gut wrenching to live in. So I think that that's like kind of that intangible benefit of us being survivors and being in it and knowing. And also, like, it's really cool to see somebody on the other side, right? To be like, hell yeah, like she totally did it, like she is out there and she's doing what she wants and she's living her life. And it's cool to see that example, because that then you've got like a goal line, that you can start heading that way. So yeah.
Man, I did not expect, I just put my lashes on and I don't want to cry, but it is, and I see this all the time. I am never happy that someone else has gone through what we've gone through, but even just sitting here and talking to you, and it's just like, you have the energy of so much. Like, I genuinely feel like I could see you start bawling and you just give me a hug and there'd be no questions. And that's the energy that you have. And that is so rare. And there's not enough of that. And something that I forget, because I am so careful with my circle now. I am so careful with the people that I let in, but like, even so, like, that I tend to forget what the real world is like and how horrible some people are and how this is just not understood. And even it's not understood by some survivors who haven't really done the work, of recovery and stuff. It's rare to find someone to be like, hey, I get you. And you are like, not just the person who's giving you a hug. It's like, hey, I get you. I see you. I believe you. I know exactly what's going on. And I'm going to make sure I call again next week and see, if you got your order, to make sure that you're okay. Like, to make sure that everything is good. there's not, I keep saying the same thing. There's just not enough of that. There's not enough of that at all. And we're not even talking about me, but just some of the things you're talking about. I feel so seen, so heard, and so valid. And that's the first step of someone recognizing, just like you said, someone on the other side of it, like, oh, I can get out. Like, oh, that is possible. Like, oh, she's been there, done that, bought that t-shirt, burned it, and wore it again. And then there's just power there, man. There's so much power there.
Yeah. I think too, like what you touched on before about the financial abuse. You know, people think about abuse, and I know you've probably talked about this or seen this, and it's the picture of the girl that you see on the back of the bathroom door, and she's got a bruise and she's hiding in the corner, and it's gray and it's dark, and it's sad, and it's real, I'm sure, but there's a lot. The picture is so much more diverse than that. Mm-hmm. I showed up to work every day. Like, I went to work every day. I had to, you know, wear skirts and dress up and have my hair done and be there and be on. And I volunteered at the school, and you know, the school knew me constant. I mean, I would just walk right back behind the front desk. Like, they knew me so well. So I think there needs to be even more exposure to abuse. Looks like this, and it looks like this, and it looks like this, and it looks like this. It looks like a lot of different things. And then when you talk about financial abuse, I mean, I knew I was experiencing it. I didn't know that it was technically qualified as abuse, right? But until I saw that, have you seen that power and control wheel?
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, that was my light bulb. I was like, oh yeah, like, I'm totally the check mark on everything. I'm totally in this. And until I started working on this and doing research on this, I didn't realize how pervasive the financial abuse was. I mean, the statistics are saying it's upwards of 94% of abusive relationships involve financial abuse. And that really speaks to what we're doing too. Like, I remember being paralyzed, frozen, same neighbor who found the restraining order. I was frozen outside of my garage. You know, the keypad to open your garage. Like, the week before, he had come in, even though I have a restraining order, and he was kicked out of the house. He had come in, got the beer he likes, drank some, left the bottles out, very sleeping with the enemy feeling, like I was here, right? And then left. And I told her, and she was like, get somebody over here to change the thing. And I was like, but it's gonna be $150. And then I have to take it out, and then he's gonna know, and you know, and I'm doing this like mental tap dance. And she's like, I will drive you to the bank right now, get the freaking money out and handle it. Like, you know, it's almost like a verbal slap you across the face, like those cartoons, because you're so used to being in that cycle. So when we talk about assistance, people needing assistance, they might make six figures. They might make more than that. They might make enough to sustain themselves, and that's fine. They may not. They may be below the poverty level. But on paper, it just doesn't show that gray area in a relationship. So you may make six figures, you might not have access to it, or you might be just too petrified to pull the money out. Because if you do, and there's that line item on your bank statement that says you paid at the court, game over. You know, who knows? That's the most dangerous time, is when you're leaving. So that's why we hope that this can help in those situations, because I think there's probably a lot of people, I mean, I don't even know what the number is, but who have filled out the form for assistance, and it's like, well, you don't qualify because your income is, you know, because we have our arbitrary system of deciding. And so on our application, yes, there are some rigid qualifications or thresholds, but then there are also some subjective, like, hey, how do things feel right now? Like, how dangerous are things? And, you know, can you access your money? Do you feel scared to do that? So we can get a really good, we feel like, full picture on what someone is dealing with. And so yeah, that's that financial abuse thing is powerful. I mean, like you said, it keeps people in their place. So,
and that, yes, I'm really, really glad you brought that up, because I like I say all the time. So like, cause I had some people get upset with me when I first started talking about it, but like I say all the time, just because they didn't hit you doesn't mean they're not abusive. Just because they didn't leave a physical bruise doesn't mean they're not abusive. And it's like, and I'm not taking away from anyone who's gone through physical abuse. I've been there, done that. I've been the black and blue. I've been, purchased 30 pounds of concealer to try to pray to God my mom doesn't notice, right? Like I've been there, but it's also, because the statistic is that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are victims to abuse in their life. Well, I don't believe that's even close to accurate. I feel like it's closer to 1 in 2 because that's self-reported and it all depends on what people see as abuse. And something that happens all the time is I get DMs. Like it's like once every few months, I just get flooded with these DMs of women going, "You're telling me that's abuse? You're telling me that that's not normal? Like, wait a minute, you're saying that this isn't healthy?" And it's like, yeah, if you don't feel safe, even if you feel fine physically, if you're not safe mentally, spiritually, emotionally, chances are you're a victim of abuse. And we have this visualization in our head of the abuser being this old fat white dude in a stained wife beater holding an amber bottle in his hand, stumbling around screaming. Does that person exist? Hell yes, that person exists. But there are a lot of other abusers that are charming, that are handsome, that are clean, that are kind, that are so upfront, they look just fine. And then, but once you close the door, the mask comes off and everything changes. And that's what needs to be talked about more. The thing, and I'm gonna stop talking, let's talk in just a sec, but I'm never gonna forget, I could not finish the movie. I don't understand. I love my grandma, but she does not choose the best movies for children. I think I watched this movie when I was like 14 and it has Jennifer Lopez in it. And I cannot think of the name of it. But basically what happens is she ends up meeting this dude. It's 100% orchestrated because he used his best friend to like help reel her in. And it's so romantic. He cared about her so much, right? Well, they end up getting together, get married, and a year in, turns out he's been cheating on her for a year, and she calls him on it, and he's making 6 or 7 figures working at some investment bank. Full on right in the face. She hits the ground. And he's just like, now that you know, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go see Judy. I'll be back tonight. Don't ever ask me a question again. And it was like, and that, I mean, I guess 14-year-old me shouldn't have seen that movie, but I'm actually kind of glad I did because it shifted my perspective. And the movie got so crazy during the whole thing. But that movie is so powerful because it's like the abuser in that sense. And he acts in a lot of other movies, but I can't watch any movie that he's in now because I just have that association. But that's so important to recognize. Just because you smile and you look fine and you don't see any active bruising and you're not, this shivering chihuahua, just because you're not that way doesn't mean you're not a victim.
Right.
Like we're all really good at masking. We're all really good at pretending everything is okay. I can't tell you the number of therapists who told me I didn't need therapy because I knew exactly what to say and how to say it. And it's not talked about enough at all. And I'm going to keep beating that drum until the day I die. Because
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it looks different. I think in every situation. And I think maybe we touched on this when we talked before, but like you normalize things in your life so that you can get through it. So we all do. I mean, even if you're not in an abusive situation, like you normalize some of your habits, you excuse some of your behavior or behavior of your parents or behavior of your friends or whatever else. And when you're in an abusive environment, it's a pattern. It's a pattern that you can rely on. You can see it coming. You know when it's going to end. You know how long you've got to wait it out. You know how many crazy text messages you have to get through. You know how many crazy phone calls you have to get through. And then you just say to yourself, like, just get through, today, just do work and get through today. And then it'll fizzle out, he'll calm down. And then I can start fresh tomorrow and it's fine. And that's, if you're lucky that it only lasts one day. Sometimes they can go on for days and days and days, which is exhausting. But you're so happy to be done with it when it's done, when that episode or that cycle is done, that the last thing you want to do is be like, okay, I'm leaving. Like you're just like, oh my God, thank God. Like I can just breathe today for just today, you know? And you hope that the next one is a ways off until they start getting closer and closer and closer together. And then you're just riding it the whole time. But yeah, it's there. I talk about this quite a bit with like friends and friends' kids, you know, because they're kind of getting into that teenage dating scene. And it's, you know, I said to them, like, and I think my advocate said this to me, like, look, they don't punch you on the first date, and they don't rip you up on the first date because you wouldn't stay. So it's like, again, with this saying, like, is it death by a million cuts or something like that? It's they just like drop a little statement there, and then you, oh, okay, all right. And then you kind of go on and let it like metabolize. And then as it comes and comes and comes, right? I mean, just like you said with that actor, knocked her out to be like, this is how we handle this situation. Do you want to do it again? So even on an emotional level, it's, I'll show you how I'm going to handle you talking back to me, or you asking for clarity, or you talking rationally. I'm going to, you know, beat you emotionally into submission until you question the way that you are processing things, so that you stay where you stay. I mean, I've had so many people reach out to me and say what happened to them. And then in that conversation, we go, holy crap, is there a playbook? There's a playbook. Where is this playbook? Can we burn it? Because it's a certain personality quirk, dysfunction, you know, manner of living, and unchecked, it just continues to the next person. So, yeah.
And I say this all the time too. Like, I am someone, like, my personal goal is to, I kind of want to throat punch people when I say it, but I can't do that. Love and light and all that nonsense. But anyway, it's like when people say things like, oh, you should have just left, like that, or any variant of that, it makes, oh yeah, your face, like, yeah, like it enrages me to no extent, because it's like, one, you clearly have no idea how the brain works, so sit down and shut up. Two, you clearly have no sense of empathy at all, so once again, shut up. But it's also like, even the word gaslight, right? The word gaslight was made popular by this, I think it was the 1976. I feel like that's not right. I feel like it was before that. But anyway, somewhere around 1976. No, that's when it became popularized. But the stage play, Gaslight, he did it. So the whole word gaslight came to be because of this play where he wanted his wife's money. I can't bring myself to watch it, so I don't know the entire premise of it. But what he did is, when his wife would go to bed, he would turn down the gaslights a little bit. And then the next day she'd come down and didn't really notice anything. A few days later, she's like, isn't it dark in here? And he's like, no, it's the same as it's always been. Slowly but surely, and over the course of weeks and months, she went crazy because she didn't have any reason not to trust this person. She's like, this person's my husband. She went nuts. If he would have walked down and turned him off all the way, she wouldn't have believed him. Abusive relationships don't start by turning off the lights all the way. It's little by little by little until you don't even understand the hole that you're in.
Yep. And the only thing that can give you some of that clarity is space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, at least I can't speak universally, but I've seen it with me, and I've seen it with other people. The space that you get to then have to allow your brain to like recalibrate and just think on its own without interference is invaluable. Like, I feel like that's the only way that I like came out. I've talked about it as like a fog, like, or like feeling like you can, I think Gwen Stefani or something said like she felt like someone had turned on windshield wipers finally, like she was driving through weather, but then finally she was like, oh my God, that's what the road looks like. Like, you can't, space is the only thing, because you're constantly, you're trained to think, what would that person think, do, react? They must be right. Like, I mean, like you said, I trust them. They love me. So I have no reason not to believe what they're saying. And they can do it over, and once they get you, over and over and over and over and over again about anything. I got to a point where it was like, you know, he could have said the sky was a certain color, and I would look at it and be like, knowing in my head it's blue, but no, it must be it must be purple because you said it's purple. Maybe there's something wrong with my eyes. Maybe I can't see it right, you know? And it's crazy because like I'm a smart person, you know, like this happens to intelligent people. I think we've seen that over and over again. And, you know, that's another thing is like just the stereotyping of who finds themselves in these situations is off. You know, we kind of touched on it, but like it can be a high earning person, it can be a low earning person, it can be a stay-at-home mom who has literally everything together, Stepford to the nines, does everything. It can be someone who's a hot mess. It can be, you know, who has tons of money, no money. There's just, you know, a master's degree, not, you know, a high school diploma. It can happen to anybody. So they know they're con men. They know how to work it. And they're not just men. I know women do this too. So it's like, but con men is kind of the phrase. They know how to do it because it's worked for them their whole life. So.
And that's in the thing too. And I found this out last year, and now I've been like made this a core part of what I teach too, is like when you go through these things, it actually physically changes your brain. Like your brain change, like the neural pathways inside of your brain change, which only add on. So it's not just like oh no, am I crazy? It's no, your brain is changing to say you're crazy, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, you can't live without them, you don't know what you're like. It actually changes your brain. And by the way, I think I told you this when we were talking earlier too, but like the research on this is younger than I am. I'm about to be 28 years old. They just started doing this, I feel like I think it was like 25 years ago. And it's just like, so wait a minute. So you're telling me after all of these years that I've been told that the reason marriages fail is because people quit before they don't want to put any effort in, which I'm sure that's a part of it too. But it's also like, so you're telling me that no one understood how abuse affects the brain and you're thinking that this is just now affecting us? Like what? No, like I listened to stories that my friends' grandparents have told me, and it's like, yeah, that's not okay. Yeah. That's not normal. Like that's not your husband did what to you? Like, no, I was actually talking to this woman and she was talking about her husband would discipline her. And I'm like, you're a grown ass woman. You don't need to be like, what? No. And also like, and the number of people too, like that we're just talking, and I don't ever want to like, because if someone doesn't understand that what they're going through, I'm going on a tangent, I'm so sorry. But when someone doesn't understand that what they're going through is abuse, you don't want to be like, oh, that's abusive, because then they just get defensive and all they do is defend the person, which solidifies their love for them, blah, blah, blah. But I just kind of like guide and ask questions. And next thing you know, 5 minutes in, they're like, wait a second, like it was that bad. It's that bad. Like that's not okay. And it's scary how they can get in our brains so quickly that we don't even trust ourselves to think straight until we have like these guided conversations where all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, or a glass door gets broken, or a fist goes through a wall, or you go through a wall. Like there's always this like well, not always, unfortunately, but it generally takes some big, massive moment for you to realize that this isn't okay. And
yeah, like everyone has their moment, right? So, and I know that must be so frustrating. And now that I look back, like it had to be so frustrating for family and friends who would approach me, and you know, I lost friendships over defending the behavior. So it has to be so frustrating for those people. But you cannot, like they say, you can take a horse to water, right? But you can't make them drink. And there has to be their own line. I didn't know what my line was until it was crossed. I just didn't know. And even then it got worse. So when you talk about leaving is the most dangerous time. I mean, it was like, it was playing out in front of me that it got worse and worse before it got better. And when you talk about, you know, the system, I mean, there's so much education that has to go on with police officers and the like judges, family court judges, restraining judges that offer the restraining orders, approve or deny the restraining orders. There's, I think, maybe it's not statutory changes, maybe it's just education. And that's part of our hope for the long road too, for your record, is that we get some more mandatory training so that they can feel the temperature that these people are living in, that when they call 911, when they finally decide to call 911, right? Because they probably should have called multiple times before. So when they finally get the opportunity to call, they're terrified. And in the time between their calling and the officer responds, who knows what hellfire is going down in their house, and intimidation is happening there. So, and I think especially people with kids, they fear leaving, because I know I did. I don't know if this is like some urban legend or something, but if you leave, then you won't get your kids. Like if you leave for your own safety, you won't get your kids because you abandoned them or something like that. So it was like, well, then I can't leave. Like I've got to stay with the kids, even though I was always 100% the target. So there's so much like nuance and so much emotion and so much context to people who have to respond to a scene, or for judges who have to make a decision based on 5 minutes of, a snapshot of what happened in this person's life. And I talked about it before too, like the difference between an order against harassment and a restraining order. So like both of them are basically the same orders, but one, the restraining order would be, oh, were you in a relationship with that person? Yes. Okay. Well, then you have a higher threshold to prove that you're physically in danger, right then. But like they can harass you and they can call you and they can call your employers and they can, show up at different places and just surprise you and any number of things and just torture you in general. But if you aren't, that's enough to get an order against harassment. If it was a coworker or if it was like a neighbor that had some beef with you and was harassing you, that would have been enough. But the restraining order, just because you've had a relationship with them, you've got to show a higher threshold for the potential of danger or violence. And sometimes that's a difficult thing to prove because they know the line to walk, right? So they know to be like, I'm going to threaten you and be like, come on. I think one that I mentioned was, may God have mercy on your soul. Holy hell, that's not enough. Like that's not enough after somebody has tortured me and broken my windows and broken previous restraining orders, for them to like give me the whole phrase right before somebody dies in writing. And that's not enough to say, yeah, let's just keep him away from you for the next year. It's not. They were like, no, and calling my employers and telling them horrible things, but it's not enough. So there needs to be some additional education. I was fortunate in the police officers that responded, that they were able to say, this isn't right. If you need help, we'll go with you. But they understood what they were walking into, even though it was a setup. I didn't call the police. So I'm going on a tangent now, but that's part of our hope too, is just to be able to help them understand a little better, because there are so many times that they respond and it can get flipped around on the victim, right? Like that, and in a courtroom, it can get flipped on a victim, because con men are excellent at the setup. They're excellent at carrying out the lie and the show and the production for their benefit, and they have zero remorse. So you're left holding the bag. And it goes back to that thing, right? The punch in the face. This is how I'm going to handle it. If you take it to court, I'm going to tear you to pieces, and there won't be anything you can do about it.
And also, God, there's so much, because it's like talking about, I didn't know, and I told you this too when we were talking, I didn't know the difference between a restraining order and the harassment. I think that's so opposite. I mean, no one should be harassed regardless, but it's like, if you're in a relationship that, yeah, you're in closer proximity, which means by default, you're kind of in a bit more danger, like, because they know you. And like, let's say, and I feel like, and this, I'm gonna get a little dark here. I'm gonna put a trigger warning at the beginning of the episode, but it's like, let's say that I harass the absolute crap to you over the internet. I never see you, but I am targeting you. And if you decide to take your life, and at any point during the harassment, I tell you that you should go and kill yourself, I can go to jail. And I should go to jail for murder, because 100%. But it's just like, but in that sense, a partner in a relationship wouldn't be held to the same standard. And that's just ridiculous. That's so, there's something else I was going to say, but I was like seeing red for a second there, just because I remember being 17 years old in a very, very abusive relationship. And I had gotten to, be careful about how I word this, but I ended up going on a 12-day trip out in the mountains. There's no phones, no nothing. And I was like, man, for the first time in a year, I feel so safe because there's nothing. I'm with adults. I'm out in the mountains. Like, I was safe. And the person that I asked, because I was like, can you please start this process while I'm gone? Like, you're the adult. I need your help with this. I came back to find out nothing had been done because they didn't think it was a big deal. And then for the next year, I was then harassed. Never saw, well, I mean, I came across, because I live in a small town, I ended up coming across him, but for the entire next year, I was so scared because I was harassed over, MySpace, dating myself for a second. But like, it reached a point that I didn't even know if I wanted to continue living because the harassment was so bad. But even the person that I asked for help didn't think it was a big deal.
Yeah, there's so many gaps and there's so many holes, and you hear about that all the time. I mean, as far as like not getting validation. And so then you think it just further puts you in a hole emotionally of like, oh, well, then that person's right, or I deserve it, or any number of like landslide of emotional like things that happen on that. Like, there has to be belief in the system, in the survivor, in order for more survivors to feel like they can come forward, and in order for that survivor to continue moving forward with it. Like, that's how you break a cycle. I mean, and if you're and it is, I mean, to say that it's just these familial cycles is short-sighted. It is like systemic. It's everywhere. So yeah, there's a lot of problems to fix, right? We all have our hands full.
And on that note too, I know we gotta wrap it up here, but I say this all the time. There is no one who is obligated to my story. There is no one who is obligated to your story. So one, on that note, kind of unrelated, kind of related. If anyone's telling you that you need to prove yourself in order for them to believe you, unless they are in the court of law, you don't owe them anything. For one thing, I believe you. Lisa believes you straight up. And two, no one's obligated to your story, but if you feel drawn, if you feel called to share your story, please do it. Because the more of us that step up, the more of us that decide enough is enough, the more of us who can bravely stand up and call ish out and call it what it is, that's where change is going to happen. And so if you feel called to do, you don't have to do it on a grand scale like me. You don't have to do exactly what Lisa's doing. But even if you just start with an Instagram post or you start with a phone call, that's so powerful. But thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much for taking the time. On a final note, what is one thing that you want to share with someone who's currently in the relationship? God, it's a big question, but
the one thing, I would say, like, you're not alone, even though you feel like you are, right? And it feels like you're in this new world. You're being transported to a new world of, okay, now I need to navigate legal system, or I need to navigate trying to figure out how to support myself or protect myself and these types of things. There are resources. And the more, like you just said, about the more that you talk about it, even if you feel shame about it, that's how you get the resources. That's how you find the peers. That's how you find the connections, people that have been through it, so that you can build this new type of support system that you need after being quiet for so long. So I think, the most important thing is just to remember you're not alone, even if that person is telling you like, good luck, you're never gonna be able to blah, 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 whatever. It's just so much barking. It's so much barking. So just know that. And I think, at For Your Record, we're just getting off the ground, but we've got a lot of muscle there. And I think it won't be long before we're able to help on a financial level well beyond where we're starting. So yeah, just keep up with us, and we'll make sure that we shout our progress loud and proud as we go, because yeah, we're just excited to be able to move obstacles for people and help them move forward.
That's so good. That is so good. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate you. Where can we find you? Where can we support you? Where can we get involved? All the places.
So our website is www.foryourrecord.org. There is it's information about us. There's donate sheets, and then there's also, that's where you request assistance and get in touch with us. And then we are on Instagram at For Your Record, and we're on Facebook. So those are the places that you can find us at the moment.
Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure all of those links are in the show description as well, or in the show notes. Getting caught up between YouTube and podcast, man. All that's going to be in the show notes, as well as all of the info about how you can support For Your Record by grabbing an awesome hoodie. I'll share all of that info shortly. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really do appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a good one.